No one could handle Madison Whitmore. Billionaire heiress, spoiled, untouchable, she had burned every tutor, every nanny, every school counselor who tried to get close to her. Everyone said she was impossible. But then he appeared. Jamal Thompson, a single dad and janitor at her father's office, walked into her chaotic life, and suddenly, nothing would ever be the same. If you want to know how a man society overlooked tamed the untamable, hit subscribe and let's dive into this unbelievable story. Madison Whitmore slammed the door of her father's high-rise office, her heels echoing against the marble floor. She was 17, yet she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had been given everything in life without ever earning a thing. Her father, Richard Whitmore, a man whose billions were only rivaled by his ego, barely noticed her temper tantrum as he shuffled from one meeting to another. Everyone had given up on trying to discipline her. Nannies quit within days, tutors fled in frustration, and even her mother's closest friends had stopped visiting. She was untouchable, and everyone knew it. Jamal Thompson, however, didn't see her the way the others did. As a janitor in the same building, he moved silently through corridors most people ignored. His eyes, always calm, seemed to see through people's facades. Jamal was a single dad, raising his 6-year-old daughter, Nia, alone. Life had not been kind, but he had learned patience, understanding, and resilience, the kind of qualities money could never buy. It was a rainy Monday morning when fate intervened. Madison had managed to lock herself in the office restroom, screaming and breaking things in frustration over a missed invitation to a party. Security tried to coax her out, but she shouted louder, refusing to listen. Jamal, who had been cleaning the hallway outside, was called in. He had no formal authority, no title, just a steady presence. Yet, when he looked at Madison, she froze. "You can't stay in here forever," he said gently, leaning against the doorframe. His voice was low, steady, and strangely soothing. Madison's eyes narrowed, ready to unleash a tirade, but something in him, his calm, unshakable demeanor, made her pause. He didn't flinch. He didn't judge. He just waited. Minutes passed. Madison's anger, fueled by attention-starved frustration, slowly started to ebb. She didn't know why she trusted him so quickly, why she let down her guard, but she did. She stepped out, barely whispering, "Thanks, I guess." From that day, Jamal became an unexpected fixture in her life. He didn't lecture her. He didn't chase her with punishments. Instead, he listened. And slowly, Madison realized something terrifying: she liked him. She respected him. For the first time, someone had seen through her walls, and not walked away. It wasn't easy. Madison tested him constantly, setting impossible tasks, throwing tantrums that could sink even the most patient person. Yet Jamal remained steady. He shared stories about Nia, about struggles he faced as a single dad, about the small victories that made life worth living. Madison, who had never faced hardship herself, began to see a world beyond her luxurious prison. But then the first twist came. One evening, Madison followed Jamal after work. She wanted to prove that he, too, had flaws, that he was just a man who cleaned toilets and scrubbed floors. What she found instead shocked her. Jamal was reading to Nia, helping her with homework, singing lullabies in a small apartment filled with love and laughter. Madison had never seen genuine happiness before, and it tore something open inside her. She felt envy, admiration, and a strange longing all at once. As Madison's feelings grew, so did the tension between her and her father. Richard Whitmore despised Jamal. In his eyes, a janitor could never be good enough for his daughter. He tried everything: bribes, threats, and even hiring new nannies to replace Jamal's influence. But Madison resisted. She didn't understand why she would choose a man with no wealth, no status, no power, but she felt a truth she could not deny. Then came the second twist. Richard discovered a hidden family secret. Jamal was once a successful entrepreneur, a tech prodigy whose startup had been stolen by a ruthless investor. He had walked away quietly, ashamed, and life had forced him into janitorial work. Suddenly, Madison's father realized that the man he had dismissed was far more than he appeared. But it was too late. Madison had already fallen for Jamal, not because of money or status, but because he had a heart she had never known existed. In the weeks that followed, the office became a battlefield. Madison's father tried subtle sabotage, spreading rumors about Jamal, making accusations, and even threatening to cut off Madison's trust fund. Madison, however, had learned lessons about resilience and loyalty from Jamal. She stood firm, refusing to let fear dictate her choices. Jamal, meanwhile, remained a rock. His quiet strength inspired Madison, teaching her that power wasn't in wealth, it was in courage, integrity, and love. The story of Madison and Jamal was no longer just about a spoiled heiress and a janitor. It was about two people from completely different worlds discovering that what truly mattered was what they could build together, not what they had been born with. And in a world full of lies, secrets, and betrayal, their bond became unbreakable. The weeks after Jamal became a presence in Madison's life were far from peaceful. Madison's father, Richard Whitmore, had made it his mission to remove Jamal from her life. But Madison, fueled by a newfound sense of independence and admiration for Jamal, refused to bow to her father's threats. She began sneaking out of her penthouse, attending her father's office after hours just to see Jamal. It was exhilarating, forbidden, and thrilling all at once. One evening, as Jamal cleaned the marble floors of the executive wing, Madison burst into the corridor, her designer bag swinging wildly. "You left your lunch in the break room again," she said, trying to sound casual, though her heart was pounding. Jamal turned, smiling warmly. "Thanks. You didn't have to. I wanted to," Madison interrupted, biting her lip. "You do so much for me, I want to help too." Their small exchange, filled with subtle tension, had been interrupted by the arrival of Richard. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene, his daughter, smiling up at a man he considered beneath them in every way. "Madison," he said sharply, his voice cutting through the air like a whip, "can I speak to you for a moment?" Madison glanced at Jamal, a silent apology in her eyes. Jamal simply nodded slightly, as if saying, "I've got this." Richard dragged her into his office, slamming the door behind them. "This has to stop," he said, his anger barely contained. "Do you have any idea who this man is? A janitor. He's a nobody. You're risking everything, your reputation, your future, because of him." Madison, emboldened by her feelings for Jamal, stood her ground. "He's not a nobody. He's amazing, Dad. He's kind, and he's honest. Something you've never been." Richard's face turned red, veins throbbing. He had never been challenged like this, especially not by his own daughter. "You're being naive. You don't know the world outside this building, Madison. People like him, people without power, without influence, don't survive. And you won't survive dragging yourself down with him." Madison's eyes flashed with anger. "I'd rather survive with honesty and love than with your fake empire and your lies." Richard stormed out, leaving Madison alone with her thoughts. And in that moment, she realized that her life had changed forever. She wasn't just a spoiled heiress anymore. She was someone who could stand up for what she believed in, someone who could fight for love and integrity, no matter the obstacles. The next few weeks brought unexpected challenges. Madison's father escalated his attempts to discredit Jamal. He hired private investigators to dig into Jamal's past, hoping to uncover dirt. Rumors began circulating in the building that Jamal had a criminal record or was involved in some shady dealings. But none of it was true. Jamal had nothing to hide. One rainy afternoon, Madison decided to confront the rumors head-on. She stormed into the janitor's closet-turned-office where Jamal was sorting cleaning supplies. "Is it true?" she demanded, eyes blazing. "Did you ever do something illegal?" Jamal looked at her calmly, his voice steady. "No, Madison. I made mistakes, yes. But I've never hurt anyone. My life isn't perfect, but it's honest. That's all I can promise." Madison's heart softened. She realized that Jamal's integrity was what made him extraordinary. And in that moment, she made a silent vow. She would protect him, no matter what her father threw at them. Then came the shocking twist. One evening, Jamal received a mysterious envelope under his apartment door. Inside were documents proving that Madison's father had been involved in illegal corporate dealings, tax evasion, embezzlement, and manipulation of stock prices. Jamal's heart raced. This was bigger than anything he had imagined. He could expose Richard, but the consequences for Madison would be devastating. Jamal kept the secret, confiding only in Madison. Together, they began to strategize. Madison, for the first time in her life, felt empowered. She realized that love wasn't just about feelings, it was about courage and standing up for what was right. Meanwhile, Richard Whitmore grew more desperate. He tried one final, dangerous tactic, hiring a group of men to intimidate Jamal, to scare him away from Madison. But the attempt failed spectacularly. Jamal, with his calm intelligence and street smarts honed from years of struggle, outsmarted the men and kept Madison safe. The bold move shocked Madison. She had never seen such quiet strength, such fearlessness. She fell for him even more. Amidst the chaos, a tender moment emerged. One night, Madison invited Jamal to a charity gala, something she usually would have despised. But she wanted him to see the world she came from, to understand the life she had grown up in. Jamal hesitated, aware of the ostentatious display, but he attended for her sake. That night, in the middle of a grand hall filled with glittering chandeliers and wealthy elites, Madison and Jamal shared a quiet, genuine moment, a dance in the shadows, just the two of them. It was magical, but it also signaled the approaching storm. Richard Whitmore, furious at the sight, began planning his final move. He knew that if he could separate Madison from Jamal, he could reclaim control. But he didn't realize that the bond between Madison and Jamal had grown too strong to break. The second part ends with suspense, as the audience wonders, will Richard succeed? Will Madison and Jamal survive the ultimate test? And just how far is Jamal willing to go to protect the girl who had become his world? The tension between Madison, Jamal, and Richard Whitmore had reached a boiling point. Madison, now fully aware of her father's manipulations, was no longer the naive teenager who cried over missing parties or tantrums. She had grown into a young woman who could see through lies and stood up for what mattered. Jamal, for his part, had remained steadfast, protecting her not just with physical courage but with patience, wisdom, and unwavering love. Richard, blinded by ego and fear of losing control, decided to use his ultimate weapon, Madison's reputation. He leaked false stories to the media, painting Jamal as a conman, someone using Madison for her wealth and influence. Headlines screamed across social networks, "Heiress falls for Janitor, love or deception." Madison's friends began to question her choices, her social media erupted with hate comments, and the pressure mounted. Madison confronted Jamal in the quiet of his apartment. "Maybe he's right," she whispered, tears streaming. "Maybe we're from two different worlds. Maybe I made a mistake." Jamal held her gently, cupping her face. "Madison, look at me. Do you love me?" "Yes," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Then none of this matters. The world may try to tear us apart, but it can't touch what's real between us." Madison realized he was right. She had always chased external validation, but Jamal had shown her the power of honesty, loyalty, and love. And in that truth, they found strength. The first major twist of the night came unexpectedly. Richard, thinking he had cornered Jamal, arranged a private meeting with the intention of intimidating him into leaving Madison for good. But Jamal, aware of Richard's moves, came prepared. He brought evidence of Richard's illegal dealings, the documents he had discovered weeks earlier, and threatened to release them if Richard harmed Madison or interfered with their lives. Richard, furious and cornered, had no choice but to retreat. But he wasn't done. In a final desperate move, he tried to bribe Madison with a promise of a luxurious life if she left Jamal forever. Madison, now wise and resolute, looked at her father without fear. "I'd rather have love, honesty, and a life worth living than all your money and control," she said firmly. That moment marked a turning point. Madison officially rejected the life her father had dictated, embracing a future she would create with Jamal. But life, as always, had one more twist in store. The ultimate test arrived when Madison's ex-tutor, who had secretly been bribed by Richard, attempted to kidnap her during a charity event. Madison and Jamal were cornered in a dimly lit corridor, the kidnapper demanding they comply. Jamal, without hesitation, shielded Madison, using his quick thinking and street-smart instincts to disarm the attacker. In the chaos, Madison grabbed a fire extinguisher, surprising both herself and everyone else with her courage. Together, they neutralized the threat and ensured safety for everyone around them. The dramatic rescue made headlines, but this time, the story wasn't twisted or manipulated. It was clear to the world. Jamal was a hero, and Madison's choice was based on truth, not status. Richard, humiliated and powerless, realized he had underestimated the man he had once dismissed. In the aftermath, Madison and Jamal took time to rebuild their lives together. They moved into a modest apartment, filled with love, laughter, and the simple joys of life. Madison enrolled in a school away from the shadow of her father's influence, determined to make her own mark in the world. Jamal, now recognized for his brilliance from the past, began mentoring young entrepreneurs, showing them that honesty and perseverance mattered more than wealth. Their bond deepened further when Nia, Jamal's daughter, and Madison formed a sister-like friendship, bridging the gap between their worlds. Madison learned the joys of parenting, responsibility, and compassion from Jamal, while he embraced the love and confidence Madison had inspired in him. The final twist, however, came from an unexpected source. Richard, humbled and secretly impressed by Jamal's integrity, approached the couple months later. He offered a reluctant apology, acknowledging his mistakes and promising not to interfere again. Madison, wise beyond her years, accepted his apology, but made it clear that their lives would now be driven by love and truth, not wealth or control. The story closed with a tender scene at a park on a sunny afternoon. Madison and Jamal watched Nia play, laughter echoing in the air. Madison rested her head on Jamal's shoulder, feeling the warmth and security she had never known in her privileged but lonely life. "Thank you," Madison whispered. "For seeing me, for believing in me, for never giving up on us." Jamal smiled, holding her hand tightly. "We built this together. And it's just the beginning." As the camera of our narrative pans out, the couple stands united, not because of wealth or status, but because of love, courage, and the resilience to fight for what truly. Now, tell me, viewers, from which part of the country are you watching this story unfold? Comment below. I'd love to hear where you're joining us from.